Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I've been looking at these stats and I keep thinking, gosh, are they right or are they wrong? Because it seems like they haven't changed from last week, and maybe that's just what it is, that they really haven't changed. The amount of homes that sold was 443 last week versus 435 the week before. Very consistent. And the median price of single family homes stayed the same at 440,000. So right within our range in regards to what it has been consistently. Actually, a little bit higher. Was 420 a couple weeks ago. So that's kind of what the deal is. The inventory went down by 18, which now puts it at 9466. So even though it's 18, I'll take it. I think that's awesome. That shows that the inventory is kind of staying where it's at, and that we've got a good balanced market at 4.93 months of inventory, right around 5. Between 4 and 6 is considered a normal market. So we're right in the middle of that. So of those 443 houses, 36 of them were under 250,000, 34 between 250 and 300, 98 between 300 and 400, 103 between 400 and 500, 136 between 500 and a million, and 36 over a million. In addition to that, when you're looking at that, the months of inventory, we're at 4 months of inventory under 250, 3.68767 between 250 and 300. Then we go to 4.51, 4.32, 5.93, and 6.21 over a million. So, pretty consistent over there. The list to ask price ratio is at 96.44. Under 250 was at 90.505. So that's a little bit lower. So there's a little bit more room there. Over a million was at 93.55. And then everywhere in between is 97, 98, all that kind of good stuff. So basically, the lower end ones and the high end ones have a lot bigger margin of negotiation that happened. For some reason, it's always that way. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. The ones under 250 usually do require work. And so people are going to offer less when they feel like a property needs work. The ones that are over a million, basically people have a lot of choices there a lot of times, and they always have things that they want to do to the property. So as a result of that, they always do quite a bit underneath. So when you're looking at the million, let's see, where are we in that? That basically the average price of the properties over a million is at 1.9, so almost 2 million. And basically where they're ending up at that 93% is they're ending up at, well, the average price is at 1.9, the median price is 1.4. And the average amount that they're taking off, that's what I was looking for, was actually about 100,000, which is pretty typical for that price point. So that's kind of what's going on there in regards to what's happening. The average days on the market is 68, and basically that's kind of what's going on in the single family homes. When you're looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, we're at that decreased to 119 from 124. So really not much of a decrease. Basically, the inventory increased by 8, so pretty consistent. And the median price went to 268, which is down a little bit, which is right again within our margin of where it is, between 250 and 300. So we're kind of staying there. So it shows that everything is pretty much consistent when it comes to those kinds of properties. So when we're looking at what's happening there, Of those 119 properties that sold, 50 of them were under 250. There are 18 between 250 and 300, 28 between 300 and 400, 16 between 400 and 500, 7 between 500 and a million, and 0 sold over a million this week. So what that means is that our overall inventory is at 8.7, 8.09 under 250, 8.54, 9.57. So they're all pretty consistent. The highest one is at 10.55, which is between 500 and a million. So, but basically the bottom line is there's 8 months of inventory. So that shows really that a decent number sold. They're still at 96.29% of asking, however, 94.49 under 250. And then we go up to the 98s all the way across the board until we get to the 500 to a million that they were at 93.81. So there are a total of 13 on the market over a million, but none of them sold this week. So that's basically what the scoop is there. And the days on the market is 86. And if you're just listening for the first time, you're probably going to hear that the reason that I think there's higher inventory in the condos is because the condo fees have increased significantly in the last probably 5 years. The Surfside deal, I don't remember what year that happened, but it's probably been about 4 years ago when that building collapsed in Surfside that I talk about consistently. That is really the reason why the condo fees have gone up, because there's been a lot more inspections required on condos that does cost money, and they found a lot of things that need to be repaired. So as a result of that, the condos, there's such a dichotomy there. And so I was explaining to a condo owner that I was speaking to recently is that their fees on a monthly basis is $1,000 for that condo. And so when you're looking at that, you're looking at it and going, gosh, I could spend another couple $100,000 on a house and not have that fee. And so your $300,000 condo becomes a $500,000 house with that $1,000 fee. And they agreed, and they know, and they actually said themselves, they said, well, if the condo fee was a little bit less, we'd probably keep it ourselves. But because it's that fee, we've decided that we want to sell. And it's a second home for these people. And so that's basically, what the bottom line is. But it's not uncommon at all to see $1,000 condo fee. And so it's really difficult for someone to get a loan because they have to qualify for both. They have to qualify for the condo, and they have to qualify with that condo or HOA fee that's included. And so basically when it comes down to it, you have to know what is going on. You have to have your eyes wide open, looking at the full big picture and everything like that in regards to what's going on. I also am working with somebody right now that bought a single family home last year from a builder. And the builder, they told what the CDD was, which is a community district development, which I'll get further into on the next segment. But they told them that the CDD was going to be $1,500 a year, which it included high-speed internet. So I thought, okay, well, that's not terrible. But then the maintenance part of the CDD, they didn't tell them about, which was an additional $1,000. And so they just found all that stuff out and found out that their taxes actually, instead of being $2,500 that they thought they were, or $3,500, which they really kind of thought they were, they ended up that they're going to be $7,000. So it's quite a jump, quite a big difference in regards to what they thought that it was going to be. And so as a result of that, they want to find some place without a CDD. And so that's something that if it's an established neighborhood, you usually can find that stuff out. If it's a new neighborhood, it makes it a little bit tougher. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Hello, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So, one of the good things that's really going on in real estate is insurance reform. And when I'm talking to people, sometimes people think, well, there really isn't much reform. But when you look at the big picture and you look at what's going on, there really is. Now, insurance on property is more expensive than it is in Florida, than it is in other states still. But it is going down, which is pretty amazing. So it's the reforms stabilizing Florida markets. So there's a consumer group that says that recent reforms have reduced litigation, lowered citizens' policies, and attracted new insurers, helping stabilize the market. So you might wonder, well, what are the citizens' policies and why would the litigation be reduced? And so basically, it was tied to the Florida Chamber, says that the property insurance reforms have stabilized the market that some not that long ago worried was on the brink of collapse. So the Consumer Protection Coalition is in a statement says legislative reforms approved 2 years ago are leading to steadying and declining premiums as well as a drop in the number of policies held by Citizens Property Insurance Corp. Now, Citizens is known as the last resort of where you go get insurance. So it's backed up by the state. The state has put it in process to make sure that everybody can get insurance. And so you can't be denied by Citizens, but your policy premium might be higher. So despite the upbeat report, Florida's homeowner insurance rates remain higher than the national average, according to the May report from the Florida All Risk Insurance in St. Petersburg. The average annual premium in the state is $2,625, which is 24% higher than the national average of $2,110. So that's about $500 more than the average across the country. So the Consumer Protection Coalition says that the number of new companies entering the state are one of the main contributors to the improving marketplace. And according to the statement and data from Q1 renewals, 14 new carriers have been approved to write residential homeowners insurance policies in Florida since 2023, and 2 were approved last month. So when they announced the 2 latest companies, basically the office has seen over 120 residential filing requests for rate decreases or 0% increases so far this year. So what happens is that when a company comes in, they have to get the rate that they're going to charge approved by the state. And so there's 120 companies that said, hey, we're not either going to raise it or we're going to lower it. So this was largely blamed on the number of lawsuits against insurance companies filed in Florida. Consumer groups, insurance agents, and government officials at the time regularly pointed out the fact that Florida accounted for 8% of policies nationwide in 2019, while accounting for 76% of the litigation. So that's pretty astounding that 8% of the policies for insurance in the country are in Florida, but 76% of the litigation. So according to the Association of Insurance Agents, between 2013 and 2020, insurance carriers in Florida paid out $15 billion in claims. That's only 8%, and of that, only 8% was paid to consumers. Attorneys got 71%. So some plaintiff attorneys have long questioned that data point and argued that they work with homeowners who are simply trying to collect on claims they are legitimately owned. So the Consumer Protection Coalition says that litigation has dropped by nearly 30% since the reforms passed. And so how this is affecting Citizens, which is that place of last resort that I was talking about, that that it had 777,000 policies in force in June, which is down 36% from the previous year. That says also that 44.9% lower than when the number of policies peaked. Excuse me, at 1.47 million policies in October of 2023. So that's down almost 50%. So that's pretty cool. So basically, new things are still happening when it comes to insurance in Florida in regards to what's going on out there. So I think that that's pretty good in regards to what's happening. Good news. I've been talking about it for a while, and it was primarily a lot of litigations. And there was a study that came out not that long ago, a couple of years ago, and it said that, it's like Florida has 8% of the policies, like it said, but 96% of the roof replacements are in Florida. So that's a huge reason why the rates were going up so high. So what happened is, all of these roofing companies, not all of them, but some roofing companies actually decided that they would go around and they would tell everybody that, hey, I can help you get a new roof with your insurance. And maybe part of it was something that was needed, and maybe part of it was that your roof was old and it was time to be replaced. And so as a result of that, all of those people, if the insurance company denied it, they said, oh, well, we've got an attorney that will sue on your behalf. And so they did. And then they got a new roof, but it cost the insurance companies a lot more. So the rates went up and up and up. And so finally now there's some relief on the rates. And we're still not where we want to be. We're $500 more on average than the rest of the country. But at the same time, we're starting to see measurable progress in regards to what happened. So in my opinion, it's all been good that they're just the regulations are there to help all of us as consumers to get those prices down. And I know that there's one lady that I speak to regularly, and she's continually telling me that she's going to come back to Florida, but everybody says how terrible it is because the insurance rates are so terrible and everything like that. But this is good news that I get to tell her that they're actually coming down and everything, and that you can, it just depends on where you're at and what you're doing. And she's obviously, she's older, so she is on a fixed budget because she's on Social Security and everything. But basically it comes down to, what is the best situation, for you. And we don't want anybody not to be able to live in our state because of something like insurance or something. And I know the next thing that people are talking about is the auto insurance, which has gone up in the last few years as well. And so I think that some of those things are also seeing some stabilization when it's coming through. The insurance rates were going up and up and up, but now, in my opinion, they've kind of stabilized a little bit, and hopefully they will continue to do that, which will be a great thing to do. So, when it comes to selling your house, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is things that you can do, budget-friendly things to make your house stand out. And basically, it's front yard staging tips. And you might think when you're selling your house that the front yard isn't important. Well, it totally is important, because if people don't like the front, they're not going to go on the inside. And if they don't like the neighborhood, they're not going to go on the inside. And I know that this time of year, if you don't have perfect grass, the weeds grow very quickly. And it's so amazing to me, even if you've got decent grass, that you've got those little tall things that come in every once in a while. I don't know what they are, but in my neighborhood, they're quite prevalent. And yesterday, there were quite a few yards that were being cut. The yard lawn maintenance companies, they come in and they've got about 6 houses in a row that they do, and all of them looked pretty shabby in the morning, but by afternoon they looked pretty good. So you want to definitely be in a place where the neighbors, I mean, it's not like they don't care because they're paying somebody to do it, but basically it comes down to, what the neighborhood looks like when people come in as well. So that's one reason why some people like to have a neighborhood where the yard is maintained by the by the homeowners association, because everything is going to be consistent. They're kind of communities that are few and far between, and you don't have any choices, and usually they're sometimes a little bit higher. But basically, what it comes down to it, that's the first thing that people look at is the neighborhood when they're pulling in. And I remember that there was a house that I had on the market a few years ago that I put up there, and we had multiple cash offers on it. It was during that time, and basically, we took the one that seemed like it was the best. We knew that the people hadn't been to the house, but they had seen the video of the whole outside. Everything was happening and all of that kind of good stuff. And it was a very nice neighborhood. The house was in the 800s, so it was in a nice neighborhood and everything. But the buyer came for the inspection, and they didn't like the next door neighbor. They just didn't like them. Didn't matter, what it was or anything like that. And basically, that neighbor next door, they like to sit outside in their driveway and everything, which really was not a problem. But that specific person did not like that. And so, as a result of that, they decided that they didn't want to buy the house. Now, we found another buyer in about 5 minutes, and so it really wasn't a problem. But basically, the bottom line is that, when people come in, the neighborhood is going to be the first thing that you can't always do a lot about. But I do remember schooling one of the people that I sold the house for a few months ago, that I said, hey, the neighbor across the street, it had a tenant in it. They really didn't care about their grass. And so I said, maybe if you are on a good relationship with them, you could ask them, hey, do you mind if I cut your grass for the next month or whatever? And they did it. And basically the house sold, and everything. And the neighbor really wasn't too keen on them doing it. So they let him do it once, and that was it. But basically, the bottom line is that is something that I think that you can, that you can maybe help your neighbors out if they're open to it. And if they're not, well, it is what it is. And if it's just one house, like I remember another house that I was selling, and it did have a tenant, and they would do nothing to the yard, and they were very frustrated. This was a very, high-end neighborhood, and the HOA had multiple fines on the property, and it still didn't even make any difference, to that neighbor. But the people who bought that house in that community, they said, well, it's just one. They knew it. They knew that eventually it was going to change, and it was the house that they wanted, so it didn't really make a difference. So when you're looking at it, though, if the neighborhood is the first thing that people are going to look at, and then they're specifically going to look at your yard. So I'm going to get into this in the next segment. If you want to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was talking about the front yard, and I'm going to continue with that because there are some budget-friendly front yard staging tips that you can do that will boost your curb appeal by painting the front door, adding lighting and plants, and keeping the exterior clean and cohesive. And that's basically what it comes down to. So the front door is the first thing that you want to start with. It's the focal point, and a fresh coat of paint instantly refreshes the entrance. So basically the color choices uncovered by research is classic black is overall the top front door choice. Who would have thought that, right? Followed by navy blue. And if you want to add some flair, red is helpful for drama, yellow for warmth, and sage green that can bring out calming nature inspired vibe. Now, an interesting story on a yellow painted door. I was talking to a homeowner, and he was telling me that when he sold his house in Pennsylvania, he painted his door yellow, and it was not like a calming yellow like this is talking about. It was bright yellow. And the reason that he did that is because he wanted his house to stand out. Now, in my opinion, maybe it stood out too much, and people said, "Oh, I don't want to go into that house." But basically, he did it because he had somebody that advised him that said, hey, when people go back and they think about what house are they going to buy, they're going to say, hey, that yellow door house. And that's how they're going to remember the house. And you know, if you do watch those shows on HGTV, they do have something that they say it stands out. And so they made their house stand out on purpose by putting the yellow door. I wouldn't say necessarily that's a good thing to do because somebody else is going to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to paint that yellow door and I don't want to do it. So maybe the classic black is the right way to go. The second thing that you can do there is you can upgrade the lighting. Now, if people aren't coming at night, lighting is not necessarily something that they're going to see. But if they are coming at night, and as the days get shorter, which I've noticed that they're already getting a little shorter, not too much, but a little bit, you can upgrade the lighting that they're going to see. Plants to soften the edges, definitely, whether it's in a planter or whether, you know, like in a pot, or whether it's in a planter, or whether it's just, you know, around the bushes or something like that, they definitely make a difference. And cleaning up the landscape is a big deal. Overgrown landscape is the number one distractor. Have a clean, manicured look, add a fresh layer of mulch, and ensure the edges of your landscape are attended to. It really does make a big difference in regards to what people are looking for. And eliminating distractions. Clutter can distract from the home's overall presentation. Too many mismatched planters or garden decorations detracts from the house. And so you want to keep things cohesive, such as harmonizing outdoor colors and materials. If the front porch light is brass, but the mailbox is black, then you've got planters that are blue. It can feel chaotic. So maybe that's something that you love and that shouldn't really be a detractor. But basically, when it comes down to it, you want to make something that really is going to look good in regards to what's happening, you know, for people, because first impressions do start what people see. The front door does set the tone, like I said, and it can highlight architectural details and offer a first glimpse of the owner's personal style. So basically, what you know, if you do want to pick the right paint when you're doing that, don't be afraid of the bright colors. This one is saying make sure that it matches your style, and consider the surroundings. Don't pick a front door color indoors. Make it monochrome, and don't ignore the trim, because when people come up and they see it's a fresh coat of paint, it's going to make a big difference. I was just looking at my door the other day and I went, oh my gosh, it is definitely time to paint it, or at least power wash it and make sure that it goes along with it. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about here are how do I get neighbors to fix plants. When a property line disputes occur, documents the issues carefully and know the local rules. So that's what this is talking about. I'm not going to get into that basically when it comes from it today. But basically, I have had situations where people were wondering, is this yours or the neighbor's? And basically, you've got to document stuff. You can come down to a survey eventually and everything. But usually, fences are the main thing. But maybe it's a tree that's over the back of your yard or over the front of your yard or something that is of concern. So just talking to people is usually the best place to start, and figuring out, you know, maybe they're not invested in it, maybe they are, and just see, you know, really what works for everybody, and you can make everything happen. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So one of the things that I ran into was something called revenge saving, and it's a trend that millennials and Gen Z people are embracing in order to save money for a house or a large purchase. So basically what has happened over time is that the average savings rates for Gen Z and millennials right now is 5.3% for millennials and 4.4% for Gen Z. And this is less than the previous generations that saved between 6.8% and 8.88%. So, you know, what it always says is, basically the rules from what I always learned was 10%, first 10% you give back to your church, and then 10% you save, and then you live on the 80%. So that's kind of what was the rule that I grew up on and that I lived with. But basically, these guys are about half or even less than that. So what they've done is that they came up with this plan that's called the No Buy 25 Challenge that has taken root, with more people reducing spending beyond the essentials to limit overspending and to save more money, which they could use to buy a house or make a large purchase. The results of the 2025 National Association of Realtors Home Buyer and Seller Generational Trends shows that 20% of millennials and 33% of Gen Zers believe saving for the down payment on a home is the most difficult part of the home buying process. So, you know what's interesting about that is that it's kind of a myth, because yes, it's better to have a down payment, obviously, and to have some money, but there are situations, and in this particular market, it's easier than ever for you to go ahead and get a home without having much money down. I'm actually working with a buyer right now, and this particular development that we're looking at, the homes are in the low 300s. It's a little bit out there, but not too far. Basically, the homes are in the low 300s. They're offering $20,000 in closing costs, so you're not going to have that. They're in an area where they do have the USDA financing, which is 100% down, so you're not going to have that. And they're also offering 4.99% financing on an FHA loan, so that's 5% interest, which is good. Or they're offering 3.67% financing on a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage, 5-year ARM. So that would mean that the interest rate is going to stay at that 3.67 for the first 5 years. And then after that, it can go up. And so you can have your choice on those two. So basically, it's a great situation in order to get into a home. And basically, with interest, with insurance, taxes, principal, interest, everything, when I was talking to the salesperson, basically it came down to that it was between $2,200 and $2,300 for your payment. So that was for a brand new house, and that's everything all put together. There's houses in inventory, they're ready to go. Very little money down, because with that $20,000 in closing costs and a USDA loan, you really don't need anything out of pocket. So like I said, it is a fallacy that you might need to do that. But so the thing that I want to tell everybody out there, that if you are out there and you're thinking, hey, I would like to purchase a home, but I haven't saved enough money, let's look at it. Let's see what you need. But the other side of the coin of how I started this whole conversation is basically that you can go ahead and do the challenge that is called No Buy 25. and basically save more money. So they're turning to budgeting apps, canceling unused subscriptions, using automatic monthly saving transfer, and choosing lower cost activities. To store funds safely and accessibly, younger generations are turning to CDs and high yield savings accounts. And so basically, I think it's a good move that they learn those saving things, and those things that you can do to make things better for you and your family and everything. And it never hurts to have money for a rainy day. Everybody can tell you that's basically what everybody wants to have happen, obviously, right? And so that's basically what in the bottom line is going on and what we want to see happen. So there's a lot of great things that are always happening in real estate. I think when you're looking at our market, like I talked about at the beginning of the show, everything is very stable at the moment. And so that makes everything go a little bit better. There are some reductions that are happening in the new home sales that I've seen out there. So basically, that's something that you might want to consider, and I can definitely help you with that. In the Central Florida area, there's over 120 new communities that are being built. So to just sift and sort through that and know that you're not going to miss the one that might be best for you, probably not going to be the easiest thing that you can do. Another thing that's going on right now is that the luxury market is stronger than ever. And industry leaders say that the high-end market, particularly for homes priced above 10 million, is continuing to gain strength with all cash deals the norm. And so maybe that's outside of your budget, but maybe it's not. You just got to know that everything out there is happening, working really well for people, and that's that's kind of where we're at, and all of that kind of good stuff. I'm going to end on the show with some DIY projects that can refresh your home. That you can do is you can restain your deck and your fence, make your lawn a showstopper. We talked a lot about lawns earlier in the show. Drain your water heater, install a ceiling fan to keep things a little bit cooler, and repair cracked concrete are all things that you can do but on your own to make things look a little bit better. I think just taking a project at a time makes a big difference, whether it's power washing your house or power washing your deck or anything like that. They all add up to make the house a better place for you. And then if you do decide to sell, you've got less things that you need to do when you've got that house in great shape. And basically, if it's something that you can't get around to, find a handyman that can help you, or those kinds of things, because the things don't necessarily go away. It doesn't take a lot to maintain a house, but just little things along the way keep it better. And then when somebody comes in, they see all of those things and they're like, wow, I want this house because I think that that's the best place for me and my family, and the thing that's going to work out best for everybody involved. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. I'll look forward to talking to you all next week. Have a great one, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Do you believe it's going to be August? Hard to believe. School is going to be starting soon. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.